Welcome once again to Generations Furniture Restoration and Repair. This is episode 9. This episode is going to feature the stripping and refinishing of a mid-century modern sofa. This video is going to feature the refinishing of this mid-century modern Danish style couch and built-in coffee table, as you can see there on the end. While this couch isn't in the worst shape ever, it does have its fair share of scratches and wear and tear that need to be addressed in order to restore it to its original quality. All of the upholstery has already been removed from the backrest, as well as the floating seat cushion. All the horizontal surfaces of the sofa are made of cabinet-grade birch plywood. What that means for me is that I have a 1/32 of an inch thick layer of material on which to sand. Great care must be taken when sanding, because essentially you're sanding on nothing more than a layer of veneer. I've done a little sanding test here on the corner of the sofa, just manually sanding a bit with this 220 just to get an idea of how thick the existing finish is. It's not too bad, so I'm going to take it outside now and I'm going to utilize this variable speed sander. Working at a low speed, I'm going to give it a quick sanding with some 100 grit sanding discs and follow that up with another pass using 220 grit paper, and then I'll reassess where the finish is at that point and decide where to go from there. So it's been about an hour and the sofa has now been sanded entirely twice, once at a very slow speed with the variable sander with 100 grit paper, and then again at a slightly higher speed with 220 grit paper. And while sanders and removing finishes with sanders get kind of a bad reputation, and with a variable speed sander, a couple of tips and a little bit of common sense, you can avoid all the problems that are usually associated with removing finishes with mechanical sanders. But that's something I'll address in another video. At this point, I'm ready to just give it a real close look, spray it off with the air compressor, and I will apply a coat of pre-finished conditioner before I start my polyurethane coats. So now that this has been cleaned up and all the dust has been blown off it with the air compressor, I'm going to begin by putting on a coat of this Minwax pre-stain. It is a wood conditioner. It's not something I use all the time, but in this case, being that the construction here is nothing more than cabinet grade plywood, I think there could be a tendency for the surface to blotch or streak. So in order to prevent that, or at least limit the likelihood of that happening, I'm going to go ahead and wipe on a coat of this, followed by a few coats of the oil-based polyurethane satin. I will sand it lightly between coats with probably a 400 grit automotive paper, and let's see what we end up with. So let's get started. And for those that may not be familiar with using this pre-stain product, it's a very, very simple application. You can put it on with either a brush, or in this case I'm using an old rag. You just wipe it onto the surface like this. According to the manufacturer's suggestion, you wait 15 minutes, wipe off the excess, and then you are ready to continue. Well, now that that's had a couple of seconds to penetrate the surface and I've wiped off the excess, it's time to start layering on the polyurethane. And if you thought the last segment was exciting, then you are just going to love this. Trying to take the polyurethane all the way out to the edge here, knowing full well that while I'm doing so, it is running down the edges here, but I'm going to catch that as soon as I'm done with the major horizontal surfaces. Lay this off with just the tip of my brush. Very, very slight pressure going in the direction of the wood grain. And that's going to be about it. So all the scratches and blemishes and dings and dents have now been addressed and are now no longer a part of this sofa. And here we are. This is the complete picture. Gotta like that ghetto dolly effect I invented there. How about that? Some 5 coats of polyurethane later, this is what we end up with. Nice, smooth, finished, restored surface. It looks much better in person. I hope it looks good on camera. And this is where we started, scratched, scuffed, with a faded finish. And this is where we ended up with a revitalized finish. All the scratches, scuffs, scrapes, and damage removed. Hey, thanks very much for watching. I appreciate any comments or questions you may have. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you still can't because I hate those things.
Stoop, get down from there, you idiot.